All right, so I'm gonna share my screen. So today is all about visuals. Some of you, I think, are new to the Canvas in general, so we will cover kind of some of the concepts of the Canvas too, but this is really focused around visuals. Um, we made a couple changes recently to visuals, big changes to the inline visual, lots of new customization and lots of new features in terms of what you can build. So this is a good way to just kind of go through some of those changes, but also if you're new to Count, it's a really good way to just refresh how to build visuals, this kind of stuff. So I thought we would cover pretty basically how to create visual, how to customize that, and then go through some of the most common things that we get asked how to make. As we go through, like I said at the start, please do interrupt me if you've got questions. I can't actually see the screen now, so you guys are hidden. So I'm going to ask Harriet to, if there is a question typed anywhere, she can just interrupt me and ask. But this would be a lot better if you guys just kind of start shouting things at me as we go, than me just talking the whole time. So don't be afraid to say that. So, so if you zoom out also, if you're new to the Canvas, this is an example of Count Canvas. In this case, I've kind of added some structure here as we're gonna just go through these different sections as we go through. We have cells, SQL cells like this, which is where we query data, as you guys know. So I'm just pulling some Spotify data in this case here. If you guys have watched any of our intros videos, we use this data set to death. So we'll continue that. I know it very well. So when it comes to trying to visualize one of these cells, there's a few ways to do it. The first way, I use this quite a bit, especially when I'm in the middle of doing an analysis, like if I'm gonna have to update this query and maybe like codify some of the values or something like that. I might come in here and look at like, okay, album type, what are the different album types that's available? And I can just drop that into the canvas. And this will give me like a column overview. So for strings, we'll get that. If we look at a number, you know, if we want to know what is instrumentalness, we can drop that in and we should get a histogram of what that means. So this is a really quick way to just look at kind of column overviews. We can do that, you know, here as well. Like if we want to look at release dates, you can do that for cells too, and we can get this information there. Once they're in the canvas, you can customize them, and I'll show you more kind of how to customize, but all this customization can be done over here. So you could filter that down. You can change colors. I mean, you can really customize this to death, but it's a quick way to just build out the visual. And you also you can see how it was built. So you can see that this is an area chart. We've got, you know, our binned date here and a count on X and Y. That's pretty much how it's built. Any questions? Anybody who uses count that didn't know about that? I can't see you, so hopefully there's some nods. Cool. So the next way to build a visual is with the inline visual builder. So if we just make a new visual cell, basically, and drop it in, you see that there's this kind of bar up here where we can also create a cell up here. So let's say we look at that same cell that we were looking at, this track performance over here. Normally I do this much closer to my cell, but for the purpose of this, I'll just do it over here. So you see we've got this kind of column section over here. So if I wanted to look at maybe by artist, I wanted to look at, you know, acousticness and danceability of their tracks, I can do that. And we just get a chart. It's going to pick the best chart based on these tokens that we've selected. Now I can click template and I can change that. So if I wanted to look at that as a scatter plot, look at the relationship between these two things, I can do that there. We can type, this is actually kind of NLP based. So again, if I put in track performance here, I can do stuff like artist total streams, and I just hit tab to execute that and then hit enter to go. And again, I can look at this kind of a number of different ways as I want to make pivot tables, all this kind of stuff is in here. You can also add filters in here if you want to, so you can just keep adding filters if you just wanted to look for a specific artist or anything like that. You can do that in here. The way I tend to use these the inline is for things that, like if I want to move really quickly to make this kind of thing, it's really fast because it's just, you can add data labels and stuff like that really easily. It's just a very quick way to make visuals, especially if you're looking at like more than one column. Obviously, if you're just looking at one column at a time, then just dragging in is really nice. But for the inline stuff, you can just kind of type. It's kind of fun to try. Like there is natural language built into here, so you could just do artists, some acousticness, doesn't really make sense, but it will pick up what you're trying to do, right? Which is kind of cool. Any questions on the inline? Have you guys tried the inline since we put it in a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah. So I had a question about the inline. So when you say language, because I was trying to sort of write like highest count of something, but it doesn't go that far, right? Like it's basically just filtering for the columns that exist in the cell that it's drawing from. Is that right?
Yes, it's a good question. So yeah, certain keywords it's kind of looking for would be like the aggregators that we have available. So if you did like, it would probably pick up total, for example. So you had like total streams, it would know that you mean sum. But for something like highest and lowest, because we don't have that actually like built into these tokens. So if you click the token, you can see what aggregators we have available. So if you did something with an aggregator we didn't have, then it wouldn't pick it up. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I ran into a problem with one data set that I was using, the one from IMDb. They didn't have nulls, but they had \n values instead of null. And I tried to filter it out, and no matter where I did that, whether it was in the inline templating or even just the normal cell, obviously not in SQL, but wherever there's a dropdown for the filter, it seemed to give an error. I'm curious if you get the same error here on a different data set, just because I didn't download the Spotify one, so I'm just curious if you try and filter like artist is not or does not contain / something, whether it's a problem with the parser or I don't know. Strange.
I think I've not seen that, to be fair. So it doesn't look like it's causing an issue here. It would be that, right? Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it might just be something with maybe the database. Yeah. You should message me about that and we'll have a look because it was Postgres, right?
Yeah, it's Postgres.
Okay. It might be something about how we send the filter to Postgres or something like that. I'm not sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Anybody else had any experience with the inline or had any questions about it? I can't see. Okay, cool. Well, we'll go ahead and move on. So the third way to build visuals is obviously you can just do all this yourself from scratch if you really want to. So you can, if I wanted to build a chart over here, this is kind of where the power of the kind of the way that we've built visuals comes into play. So I'll explain a bit about the framework of how this works. If you use the other two ways, you don't really need to know kind of what marks are and what layers are and any of those things are. But if you're going to build from scratch, it's important to kind of know the different components. So basically a mark is like a chart. So we can put, like artist on Y and best rank on X, right? So we get a bar chart. It's done automatic. We can set bar. We can also set line, whatever it is here. Some of these options up here worth calling out. If I decided I wanted to flip this, I can use this to flip axes. So I can move that to X and Y. I'll get into sizing in a bit. You can also go and look at the data behind it anytime you want. You can also display charts like if you were to come to this canvas, this would be a chart for you as well. So you can kind of use them interchangeably. And we can customize this however we want. So again, I'll save a lot of customization stuff for a minute, but just to show you, like if you click this, then we can sort the axis. We can sort ascending. This is no sort or descending. We can also do that from in this section as well. So you can sort by anything else. You can sort by like alphabetical order. You can manually sort them, whatever you want to do here. Now, so in addition to, so with marks, you can also layer marks on top of each other. So if I wanted to add a line to this, like we had in some of the templates, I can add a new mark and I can say I want a line. And in this case, I also want, oh, sorry, someone else is joining, so I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. Okay. So yeah, so I've got my line here and I can set something else on X, so maybe like total streams. Now you can see by default it's trying to map both best rank and total streams in the same axis, but they're very different scales. So if we want to move one of these to another axis, we can go into this axis menu here and hit secondary axis. And now we have total streams is at the top and best rank is down here. Now obviously 2 blue things is not ideal for the best of us, so we can come in here and change the color. And this is how we have a bar and a line chart. So basically you have a bar chart and a line chart just layered right on top of it with marks. It's kind of how you can work with marks. Does that make sense? Facet is a lot about hierarchy. So if you have things that are hierarchy, like if we looked at artist, let's say we can move that down here, but within each artist, we have different tracks, right? So with this, I've now kind of grouped all the track names by each artist, so they're not repeating. So this is how Facet works. You can kind of group things in the rows and columns like this. One of the other things that we have is subplots. So let's say instead of looking at this as a bar and a line chart, I wanted 2 bar charts right next to each other. So I can take my line, which is my total stream, and if I come in here, now I have my subplot options. I can move this to the second X subplot, and I can even make it bar, sort it if I want to. So we now have subplot here. Can probably even take out title. More exciting. And again, that's kind of from in the mark section. If you go into here and you just add a subplot like this, makes sense. Any questions on that so far?
You got some thumbs up, but no questions.
Thank you. I don't know if many people could have left. I don't know. I can't see. That's good. All right, so that's just really quickly how to build visuals. I think a lot of what we tend to get asked about is how to customize them. So in this next section, I'm going to talk about how to customize these visuals. So I've gone over some of these things, right? Like sorting, so you can sort in here by just clicking. So this is nice, especially if you have a bar chart. You can just click on the axis that you want to sort by, and it will sort for you here. Colors and legends, if you have kind of categorical fields like this, or like it's not a continuous color scheme, then you can just come in here and go to color and just kind of change the color however you want. You can also map things onto color. So if I did want to color by like whether it's explicit or not, I can do that here. And then I can kind of go in here and go to edit colors. And we've got loads of different color schemes in here for you to pick from. So you can have that in here as well. You can also then, if you didn't want to show the legend, you can hide the legend like that. And you can come back if you wanted to show the legend, bring it back here. You can also change the name of the legend. So if you go to edit legend, you can change the title. You can spell things wrong if you want to. Just like that. Axis formatting, we get asked about that a lot. So when you come in here and you right click on an axis, you'll see these different axis options. You similarly have them over here. If you click this, you see format, edit axis, and these are the same ones that you see over here, format and edit axis. Edit axis lets you change the name, so you can just make that total streams. You can change the scale if you wanted to go logarithmic, power, anything like that, that kind of really niche scaling, you can do that. You can also set your domain if you wanted to only show a range of values from like 0 to 1 or whatever it was. You can also reverse it. So this is how you do like butterfly charts. If I reverse this, let's go. I have a butterfly chart now. if I want to change kind of the values, how they're presented, I can go into format, and then we can see I can just select a number, and I can just say I want this to be like millions, whatever it is, and we get 10 million. You can change if you want decimal showing, prefix, all this kind of stuff. This is how you can change to currencies, percentages, all this. And you can also do it with labels. So if I turned data labels on, you can see that that formatting has continued for the labels. But you could change it. So if you wanted, this to be 10 million, but this to be in thousands, you could do that, and you could format them differently by just going into labels, doing that there.
You've got a couple of questions, Taylor, from Callum. I don't know if you want to talk through your questions, Callum.
Yeah. So there was just a couple of questions on legends. I think it's possible that you've added some functionality like literally in the last week, because there are a couple of bits there that I've not been able to do before. So they like really good improvements. A couple other things. Can you change the aliases in the legends at all? So like the legend that you had there obviously had the strings from the SQL queries. Supposing that you had some like kind of not very readable strings in the SQL query, like is it possible to replace them with something like more readable?
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't have that. You'd be able to do it by using pivoting if you wanted to do it that way, but for a legend, no, not yet.
And just I assume not, but like, can you also then change the size of the legend within the visual to like, I think sometimes we've had a situation where like the legend inherits quite a long string from the SQL query, and then it kind of cuts off, which I think was a problem that one of the analysts had. So is it possible to kind of resize the legend within the visual itself?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's not currently, but we are going to continue to keep adding to this space. We basically don't want you guys to feel like you're limited in any way. So those are really sensible things for us to look at next.
Cool. Yeah, the improvements from even just like a week or two ago look really good on the legends.
Yeah, hiding legends is really nice, isn't it? And showing them. Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick one.
You have a question? Oh,
yeah,
that's fine. Yeah, go for it.
I think you showed it a bit like with the different kind of formatting, for example, like in thousands, millions, etc. Because I was wondering, like now, like on that screen, for example, you have a very long number on each of the bars. Is it possible to like really shorten it down and instead of, for example, 13,181, just have 13K, which would make it very readable? Yeah. Can you show again?
Yes, you can do that here. So that's in the same format. So if you right click and hit format, you'll have axis in labels. So axis will be what your tick marks do, and then labels would be, if you have labels turned on, it will be how you want them formatted here.
All right, nice.
Yeah. And if you wanted to also like put something else on the label, so like if I wanted to put explicit on the label, then I could just drag that to label, and now like what I'm actually labeling has changed here. Yeah, but if I take that off, it's just going to inherit the axis that it's on.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and you can turn them on and off over here as well. Are there any other questions? No. Okay, cool. So I thought we'd go through, this is another example, but it's a lot of similar ideas with sorting and colors and legends and stuff. I'll just kind of show you in a different context. So in this case, to sort, one of the things that came up a lot recently was kind of how you can order the values in a stacked bar chart. So you can do that now if you, whatever my color is mapped to, in this case, education level on the stacked bar chart, I can go to sort. And in this case, I've just manually done it because I want, to make sense. There's not really an alphabetical order here. But as you can see, if I can flip these around, then they'll flip in my visual here as well. So you can order these however you want. Like I said, you can do it by column, alphabetic, Probably with stacked, you mostly want to do it manually, but that's going to be in that same kind of sort section here as it was before. For formatting, like I said, you can come down here and I would probably make this a percentage, which is nice. One thing that I feel like also is worth mentioning that some people don't realize that you can do is that you can resize the spacing between these objects like this. So if I wanted, to make this really large bars, I can do that, or I can shrink them down quite a bit as well. And so this is just by kind of clicking the space between the two rows and dragging to change the shape. Can also do things, rename this something else, probably maybe hide this, maybe turn that on, and add level to my labels. And so the labels themselves will, if you have automatic labels turned on like this, then it will just do when there's space to do it. So like this, because it's such a long string, there's not a lot of space for it to happen. The other way that you could do it is you could add another mark type that was text and go over the top of it, and you could you have more control over what shows then, because you can have a layer that is just a text layer. I'm not going to show that for now. It takes a bit of time to kind of get that to work, especially with stacked bar charts, but just if there was kind of the automatic formatting wasn't doing exactly what you want, and you can always add another mark and make it text, and it's basically then you're kind of just layering text on top of your visual, and you can completely customize the placement, the sizing, all that kind of stuff. So if you go into here, now I've added a text layer, you can see all this stuff. So it says, how do you want the text to align? You can change the size. You have kind of complete customization into this text layer. So if you wanted like very specific text labels, then I suggest using a text layer for it. Yep. So to actually do something with these visuals, you can obviously kind of share it like this if you want, but we have these templates in the top right-hand section. A lot of them are built for outputs and stuff. So if you go to I use this in the site one all the time, which is just this one. And if you have a chart like this, you can just drop it into the space and it will fit the size here. So you can see and it's just, kind of kept the same spacing. With regards to spacing, you do have some other options. So if you look over here, so some of these, this is fill to available space, and this is resize to fit. So if I do resize to fit, it's going to expand my visual so that everything can be shown. Or if I did,
Taylor,
yeah,
I think your screen's frozen.
oh.
I don't know if it's for everyone else too, but I also am just seeing one screen.
Just froze.
Oh, let's try again. It's looking great on my end. How's it?
Yeah, that looks like it's back.
What did you last see?
I think probably start from the start of the templates again.
Okay, cool. So yeah, templates are up here in the top right. There's different categories. A lot of them are kind of output focused. So there's these insight ones, and I use them quite a bit. So these are just two of the ones that are here. They just help you you have a visual, you want to give it a title, a quick description. You can put, the frames of your data around it just really quickly, and then you can also always turn it into a slide deck, really, if you want to do that. Just a nice way to kind of contextualize your visuals. So to do that, you can just drop any visual that you have into this space. And now we've got our visual in here and just in the right dimensions as in the template. But what I was saying before kind of about spacing, so I'll show you that again. So you have these options over here. So one is fill available space and one is resize to fit. So in this case, if I hit resize to fit, it's going to resize the frame so that I can see everything in the visual. So it will usually would tend to make my visuals bigger, but it can also take away empty space as well. And then you have this one, which is fill available space. So if you had, let's say if I did this one just here, it's going to make sure that I can see everything in the visual given the space that I've allowed it, if that makes sense. So this one's good. We use it a lot internally for our reporting. We have kind of our metrics every week. There's a new week that shows up. So instead of you constantly scrolling to make sure you're seeing the last week, if you do this, then you'll always see the dates, all the dates available in there. You don't have to worry about scrolling through like that. So this is a good one to use for any kind of time series and things like that. Does that make sense?
You've had a couple of questions come in.
Okay.
Callum, do you want to say on first?
Yes, so mine was just on, I think, a couple of points ago, but when you were changing the axis formatting, so you changed the one there to %, is it possible to have that formatting persisting on the tooltips when you hover over the bars, or will it stay as kind of the original value?
Yeah, so that's if you do labels, that will hover. So now that's a percentage here. Yeah. Yeah, good question.
I another quick question. Sorry, I know I put it last, but I might as well while I'm off
Yeah.
mute. That last little thing that you showed around the auto fitting, which is really cool. Does that persist? So like one thing that I've had before is like if I have a SQL query that gets edited or like a date frame changes or whatever, and it now returns like a different number of bars, for example, and kind of becomes narrow. Is it the case that that option kind of persists? So like say that visual as it is now is auto fit. Suppose that you went and changed that SQL query that underlies gets rid of like all the developer bars, for example.
Yeah.
Will that then kind of become shorter, or will it kind of auto fit to fill the space still?
Let's see. Yeah, I guess it does. It doesn't persist.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
You've also got one from Matthew.
Yeah, two things. I mostly wrote them in the chat so I don't forget them. Can you explain a little bit how the color palette overrides thing works? Because I really can't. I can't get it to work properly.
Oh, if you wanted to change this.
Yeah, so how does the overrides exactly, like, does that persist across the cell? So if I say that this column always has this color and I attach another visual to it, is that how that works?
No, it's really just local to that mark even. So even if you did another layer in the same visual, it doesn't even override for that. So if I wanted to override nulls to be, well, I don't know why I would do that. It's really just kind of telling you that you've changed this one thing, and then you can reset it to put it back. To be honest, I really don't. I might come in here and like change as a one-off, which I'll show as an example of that later. But yeah, I think one of the areas that we are hoping to get into really soon is how to help you reuse color palettes easily. So, you know, like if you've done this and you've done it a custom way and you always want null to be black, the next time you plot ed level, we should know that you want null to be black because you've probably made that decision intentionally. Same with like branding colors is another big thing we get asked about a lot. So one of the things that we've talked about doing is hopefully coming soon is in the color palettes, having one that is whatever colors are in the canvas. So this is the way that like we bring in our color palettes. So if you look, there's a frame hidden behind a frame. So in every canvas, I bring in a frame that has all of our colors, which means any object that I build, I can use the count colors on it really easily. But that would be really great if it extended to the visuals as well. So that would probably be how we'd help you guys build visuals that were brand colored, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think there's a few things in that space around colors that we can do next.
Cool. You basically answered the second question about centrally managing color palettes. I'm hoping that it's possible to do on project level and not only on canvas level. Okay, cool.
Yeah. What we're thinking is at the workspace level, we'd probably you could set color palettes at the workspace and they would be available probably in templates the way that we have like color palettes in these templates here. You would just have your own templates, and one of those templates would be the color palettes that you want. Any other questions?
Yeah, you had quite a lot of nods and smiles about those color changes. So
Oh, I know. I'm with you on colors, guys. It's very important.
there's one other question from Laura.
Yes, just out of curiosity, I was wondering, like, now that you showed the templates, I really like them, by the way. I think they really helped me.
Oh, cool.
I was wondering if you will also allow soon, or maybe already do, basically saving your own templates. Let's say I create like a canvas in a certain structure and I want to reuse that for a lot of different things. And that also includes basically having our brand colors, right? Maybe in that particular template. I think that would be really cool to save some time, but yeah.
Yeah, we really want to do this soon. I think it's really cool. It can help teams like completely like go so much faster, and once you've built something, you don't have to build it again. And we build the templates internally, and it's always hard to know exactly what people want. And if you're going to import the dashboard, but then make a bunch of changes to it, you should be able to reuse that really easily. So yeah, I would like to get to that really soon. I'm not exactly sure when we'll be able to get to it. Hopefully early next year. It's more of actually a design challenge than a back-end challenge, so which is a good thing, which means it's not as crazy as some of the other things that we're also working on.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. So I thought then we would go into kind of what we get asked about the most, I would say, in terms of what users come to us and ask, how do I build big numbers, pivot tables, and bar and line charts? So I thought we'd just run through those so that we all feel pretty good about that. So big numbers, there's two ways to do it. One is I tend to use this inline visual to do it. So if I wanted to just find like the total streams in our data set, again, I could just do that and have a big number, and then we can use format like we've been doing to change the units on this. We can make that millions, or maybe we need like trillions in this case. Not even sure. I don't know why that's doing that. That might be a bug. I didn't notice that earlier today. And then we can just hide the input, and we've got our big number here. So it's because I didn't do the labels. Sorry, I'm learning myself. There we go. About that. And then again, I can use this to shrink it down if I want to do that. And now I have this kind of number here. The second way is with linked text. I'm not sure how many of you guys have used linked text yet, but it's a way you can insert just a text box like this, and you can kind of format it however you want. Actually, I might insert a template to show this off. So there's a template that one of our users built, Chris Mee. It's this nice little scorecard thing that he built, which I use quite a bit. And basically, you can replace this text with something from your data. So we can do like track performance, acousticness, or one. Oops. Sorry, don't hit enter when you do that. So this obviously doesn't make a lot of sense in this case, but if I were to update the data or anything like that, then this text value changes as well. The benefit of doing it this way is obviously you have complete control over the text. So if you wanted to change the color, the sizing, you wanted to make sure it was centered exactly how you want to, you have complete kind of format control, just as you would any other text object. The negatives of it is right now, which you'll see, I go in here, you have to have it set to a specific row. So what I tend to do, and I have another example of this over here, like how I did these, is you end up kind of having to make a cell that has exactly what you want, or you have to make sure that you order the cell that it's pointing to be in the order that you care about. So you can just go to like row 1 or something like that. But those are the two ways that I recommend doing big numbers. Like I said, it kind of depends on what's more important. This way is faster. This way you have more control. But hopefully that helps explain it. Any questions on big numbers?
Yeah, it's me again. Can you take, I don't think you can do this, but I would very much like to be able to do this, which is right now on the thing on the left,
Yeah.
the text there is set to be like sum of all the values returned in the query. I would very, very much like it to take like the last number in a given query. So like the use case for this, for example, like I'm building out a metric tree where I've got a SQL query that returns a time series, and I like that for my line, but I would just like to show the number for the most recent period alongside it. Okay. Right now I'm using the linked text method to do that, but that obviously requires another SQL query to generate the formatted value and so forth, which is kind of a pain, particularly if you're having very many metrics in the same canvas.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's fair. It's just kind of, almost merging the two methods together, isn't it? You get the formatting benefits of this and the reference benefits of that. Yeah. Yeah.
And even if you were just able to apply, and this is probably potentially more awkward from your side, but if you were able to apply the formatting, like the auto number formatting options from the left-hand side into linked text, then you would be able to do it from the same query. Like you wouldn't have to create an additional query just to do the formatting stuff. So yeah, like some blend of these two methods would be very helpful.
Agreed. Yeah, we did look at that recently, actually, like adding more like aggregators into the linked text. But we actually we went to just see how people were using it, and we saw like a surprising number of people using very specific rows. So being like, oh no, I want to point to row 7. And so we thought the aggregators, it kind of made the UI quite complicated to enable both of those things. So yeah, another UI constraint, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think that is a good way to blend them together. Yeah. Any other questions on big numbers? No. Okay, cool. Pivot tables. So you can make pivot tables. I'll quickly go through how they work. They usually take some explaining. Let's look at the same data we've been looking at. So you see this pivot section down here. So if I wanted to look at like danceability and valence, which is a happiness score, and then maybe let's look at that by artist. So to get the values out of this pivot, there's two things that you'll see. You see measure values and measure names. So if we look at measure names, we can see that we've got, and again, we can kind of expand this. Try to zoom out and do this. So we have our danceability and our valence. So these are the names that were generated from this. And then to get the values, we can drop it into text. And again, I could have done this all in the sidebar, but just to show you guys how this is structured, I did it up here. And yeah, now we've got artist and the danceability and valence here like that. We can then kind of do more things with this. We can also color by this if we want to. You can kind of then just keep going. Basically, you can add more hierarchies to this. You could add the track name, track title in here, and just keep building out your pivot table as you go, basically. But the main thing to get with pivot tables is you just drag things into values and then use measure values and measure names to access them and add them to the visual. Does that make sense? Hopefully, getting nods. Good. Okay, great. Okay. I might actually skip the bar and line. I think we've done the bar and line enough, unless there's any specific questions on that. But I feel like we've kind of unintentionally created quite a few bar and line charts in it today. Did anyone have specific questions on how to do that? Or if there's another chart type you want to cover, we can also do that instead of bar and line, if there's any votes. No. Okay, I'm assuming not. That's cool. So the last section, I just kind of built some earlier today, like some visuals that maybe you might have been like wondering how you can build certain things like this. So just made some tennis balls today to look at some tennis data. looked at something like this. This is actually another Chris Me kind of something that he built to show, look at, trying to look at a specific metric and look at progress on that metric, and then also doing things like this where you can highlight kind of certain lines in some different graphs. And then even something like this where you're just adding labels to specific points and things like that. So are there any of those? We probably don't have time to maybe go through one of them. So are there any parts of that that people want me to walk through?
Personally, I would love to see how that vertical bar moves along the x-axis in the summary card. Particularly in combination with ranges, because I'm thinking sort of around box plot region things.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know more if that's something that's maybe a possibility as a workaround currently, before that box plots would be supported officially as a type.
Yes, yeah, box plots are possible, but yeah, they're quite difficult. This one here is actually two plots on top of each other with the same range. So this one is just looking at the data. There's just basically, like, I set the values how I wanted to, so the cutoffs of the different ranges, put them in a stacked bar chart like this. Made sure that the range went from 0 to 1, it was stacked, that kind of stuff. This then just has the value that I want, and I've given it a height of 1, and so this is just going to be a bar at this point on the x-axis, and at this height on the y-axis. And then like this, you make sure that the axis is set from 0 to 1. So look at this. Well, would always be that. And then make sure that the two are aligned, basically. And that's how I did that. I think there are probably more elegant ways to do it, and that's kind of the quickest way I can think of doing it this morning. I think actually when Chris did it, he had a different approach to it, so there's definitely another way to do it. But that was, for me, the quickest way for me to think about how I wanted it to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't see how that would support a range then. Maybe the underlying data for me isn't so clear, but I don't see how I could get a sort of visual to look like a box plot, because the horizontal line, you can't get the horizontal line from anywhere. So because you'd have to manufacture essentially something in the data set to generate a horizontal line, and I just haven't been able to figure it out yet. I've been trying a few things, but I haven't figured out how to do it.
Oh, I see. I can show you later how to do a box and line chart. You do have to currently you have to change how the data is structured a bit to get how you want, and add a couple of different layers to it. But maybe with that kind of base setup, then it's easier to add a scale on top of it. But I can send that to you after this if you want.
Okay, sure.
Think about it. Yeah. Anything else people wanted to look at from this, or any other questions? If there's other kind of questions you've had on visuals or the new changes at all, like, we kind of have a few minutes left, so we can go through more of these examples, or if you guys have specific questions, we can also go through them. Nobody?
Could you maybe show how you created that time series graph right underneath, like with the very many marks?
Yeah, sure. So this is connected to this drop down. So whatever you have selected will be will stand out in green, and the other ones would just be gray. The graph itself is just a circle plot and a line plot, but otherwise exactly the same. It's colored by this field called isSelected, which basically just in MySQL, I just have a binary field. It's like colors if it's selected, then it's green, and if it's not, it's a super light gray. And added some transparency to that. Same with the dots. Okay. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how you can do it. And then you just use whenever this updates, the is selected thing will change, and then everything else updates as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's good inspo.
Oh, cool. I wanted to make sure we gave some time at the end. If there were any remaining questions about anything, doesn't have to be about anything I've covered. If you guys have questions about what we're working on or anything like that, please let us know. And I had a question for you guys, which is just if you want any type of like more of these types of sessions, if you found them useful, we can keep planning them out for different things. So if they are useful, please do let us know, and we can do more of them. Thumbs up. I can see you guys again. Cool.
I think the session is great. Thank you. In terms of planning them, would be cool to maybe do a quick poll in Slack, like the week of the session. Like have the session fixed at a time slot and be like, okay, the topic will be determined based on the poll, and then have a quick poll in like a week before for like top problem that you're currently working with. I think that might be cool to kind of feel the pulse of which direction it should go, maybe.
I like that. That's cool. Sounds good. Well, yeah, guys, I think that's it for me. If there's anything else, you know where to find us. Hopefully that helped. Hope you learned something in the hour that you didn't know before you came in. If you've got any other questions, let us know. Otherwise, yeah, we'll probably be sending out some more of these little workshop things in the near future.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Taylor.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, guys.
Bye.
That was good. I'm gonna stop recording.